welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. I'm your host Faraz Darwish. Today we have got several different topics with us on the table. First, we've had Mr. Tillerson, the Secretary of State, go out of office. Now we have National Security Advisor Mr. McMaster going out of office. What is really happening in Washington? So we'll take a deep dive and take a deep look on there. And then we'll discuss Mr. Trump's new policies on tariffs. Is he going against China in a trade war? So look deep into that as well. In the end, we will look at Pakistan-Afghanistan relations as the President of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, has given the offer to Taliban for peace. Yes, I have with me Mr. Riaz Haq and Ms. Azam. Riaz, let me begin with you. What is really happening in Washington? So first, Secretary of State, and now we have Mr. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, going out of office. What is going on?
I think this has been there's been a great deal of instability in terms of both the U.S. Personnel and the U.S. policy. Mr. Trump, the President Trump, is actually having trouble getting along with the people for various reasons. Actually, the first firing of the National Security Advisor was that of General Flynn.
Right.
But that was because he was in trouble with the law, as having told lies. So he got fired for that. And then came H.R. McMaster, and people thought that this is going to be a good thing for the United States. But he didn't last much longer either, because apparently the president was not happy with his style. I mean, the issue was not substance, but the style, the way he spoke to the president. And then Tillerson had been basically rendered practically very ineffective, the day Mr. Trump undermined him when he was actually trying to initiate talks on North Korea. President Trump tweeted that he's wasting his time. So it's been a serious. I think the issue is not the people that work for President Trump, but President Trump himself, who's actually the core issue here.
So is that really a personality issue?
I think it's
something else.
It's basically we have a president who has very little understanding of the national security issues, very little understanding of the world affairs, and he's basically, I think he's probably the least of all the people who came into office to become president, but were not prepared. I think he's been totally unprepared for what he's dealing with. He's totally out of his depth.
Ms. Va, over to you.
Yeah, pretty much there is a problem between them, like for the Secretary of State Tillerson, I mean, from the very first day, you can see he was kind of out from the circle. He was like an outsider, not belong to the inner circle of president. And this thing that instead of using the diplomat, use the Pentagon leaders and the generals, it started from President Bush's time, when Secretary of State was kind of sidelined in a lot of different areas. So that is that was a little better during the President Obama's time, but of course when President Trump came, it started in a very, very high magnitude. That there was, they say that in the Secretary of State Department there were positions open, and Mr. Tillerson wanted to fill those positions. A lot of ambassadors were not available and things like that, but President Trump does not want to.
What message is it giving to the outside world? I mean, do we have non-serious attitude in Washington?
Well,
this is a very high turnover.
Yeah, question is that I would ask this question a little bit differently, that does Mr. Trump, President Trump, care about it? I mean, all the diplomats, they talk about having a talks, and President Trump comes and talk about war. I mean, he does not care basically. And its impact on the world, of course, we are becoming a laughing matter now in all over the world. The way ex-Vice President Joe Biden and Trump's conversation about he was a fat guy and things like that.
So now
and,
the question really becomes: are we looking at a new war front?
Well, of course. I mean, the thing is that this very interesting thing is happening. That is my understanding, and I hope that Riaz will comment on that as well. The way I see it is that after Mr. Tillerson, when Mr. Tillerson left, then the new Secretary of State, when he came, he took the power. His policies and his obsessions, if you will, was not too much with Asia, South Asia. He's more towards the Iran and North Korea type. So Mr. Bolton, he is also kind of following the same trail, because Mr. Bolton is also more interested in North Korea and in Iran. So it says that now, the way it looks, that now in South Asia, they should be the pressure will be a little bit reduced over Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we had an opportunity. You are going to talk about it, in the later topic. But I see it that tension will be a little bit reduced from
Pakistan, and it will transfer over to Iran.
It will transfer over to Iran, and India's so much aggression now will reduce as well, because they will not see it that if the US is not showing too much interest. That is my understanding.
So Riaz, let me take over to you. Are we saying that we can potentially go against Iran?
Yeah, I think what Misbah said is absolutely right, that both Pompeo and Bolton are much more anti-Iran. In fact, the people they're replacing, Secretary Tillerson and H.R. McMaster, were in favor of keeping the Iran deal intact. These new gentlemen who are replacing them are both ready to throw the Iran deal out the window, and they want to actually attack Iran. There was a conversation that Bolton had, after Trump's tweet about Pakistan, about lies and cheating, lies and deceit after the New Year. And he was speaking with Breitbart. Breitbart asked him about that, and John Bolton said that we should not be pushing Pakistan too hard. We should push Pakistan, but not so hard that it becomes counterproductive, that the Pakistanis decide that they're not going to do anything, and that may actually strengthen the hands of the radicals in Pakistan. The extremists might actually gain from it. On the other hand, he was saying that Iran is what we need to worry about right now. And I think essentially what he was saying was that Iran is not a nuclear, Pakistan is a nuclear armed country now. Iran is not nuclear armed. It's an opportunity for us to do something in Iran. So what he's saying is that it's too late for us to strike at Pakistan, but it's not late for us to do the same with Iran.
Pressure.
So essentially, I think my worry right now is that these two appointments, Pompeo and Bolton, are bad news for the Middle East, bad news for Iran. And
well, when you say Middle East, it's probably good news for Saudis.
Not necessarily. I think when the war comes to a region, it affects everybody else.
But it hasn't, right? Iraq, Yemen, Saudi Arabia itself.
Oh, I think Saudi Arabia has been heavily radicalized. I mean, the Saudi in fact, Saudi should worry about that a lot more, because within Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of radicals. There's a lot of sympathizers of Al-Qaeda. I mean, most of the Al-Qaeda guys came out.
And ISIS,
And ISIS, they came from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So I think the young prince, I think he wants to change, he wants to reform, he wants to do all of these things. But I think his foreign policy is very aggressive. On the one hand, he started this really terrible war in Yemen, where a lot of innocent people are being killed every day. And at the same time, he wants to now start another war And that war, he's encouraging the United States to go after Iran. So I think these things are not going to work to his advantage. In the end, I think he will regret it, because what does he think? You think that the Americans are going to go after Iran, and at some point they're not going to go after him too? I mean, this is ridiculous. Obviously, they want to remove one, player at a time out of the path of Israel. Right now, it happens to be Iran. They see Iran as a threat, so they want to remove Iran. But who comes next after Iran?
Which is going to be vacuum, and Saudi Arabia will be the only one left.
I think that's what they have to worry about.
Right.
Yeah, but these are all their wish, that we will remove them, and then I don't think they can remove. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not.
Yeah, but I think they can
Afghanistan.
damage Iran.
Yeah, they can damage. They can
damage
push,
it badly.
Significantly.
Right?
Yeah.
They can do that,
Syria
yeah.
still exists.
Yeah.
Libya still exists.
Yeah.
But
Look at what has happened to the people there.
Yeah.
That's true.
Those countries are under
can
pressure.
do
It's
that,
going to take them another 2-3 decades to come out of this.
Yeah, actually, it was very interesting that Steve Bannon, in the beginning, he say when he became in the White House advisor to President Trump. That time one of his interview was coming on the media. That was a little bit 2-3 years back.
Okay.
And where he was saying that next 5 to 10 years, he's seeing Americans fighting war in Middle East, is most probably in Iran.
Oh, he said this.
That's what he said. That was similar thing. If I pardon me if I forget the exact words on it.
Let's switch the gear. Let me go over to what Mr. Trump is doing. President Trump is doing on this tariffs issue. Is he going against Iran? What is really going on, Riaz? Tell us, and then I'll take it to Misbah.
No, I think the tariff war he's starting, the trade war he's starting, is with China right now. In fact, what he did was, when he announced tariffs of $50 billion.
That's what I meant, China. Sorry.
Yes, the $50 billion worth of tariffs against China. He actually decided at the same time to try and make peace with the American allies and exempted the Europeans and the Canadians from the steel tariffs that he had imposed earlier. So I think he's trying to play this game. The biggest worry right now is that the Chinese are not going to just take it lying down. Number one, all of the prices of the products, and America imports a lot of stuff from China, all those prices are going to go up. And that means essentially a tax on the Americans. Americans buy a lot of those products. We buy a lot of tech, like we buy iPhones, for example.
Right.
We buy most of the stuff in Walmart, shoes and clothes and all that stuff.
You name it.
Yeah, everything.
You name it. Right.
All those prices
Everything.
are going to go up.
Including this laptop.
And every American is going to be hit with those higher prices. So essentially, the tax cut that he gave earlier, those tax cuts are going to be essentially neutralized with these tariffs. That's number one issue. Number two, Chinese are going to hit where it hurts Trump most. They know that where the red states are. They know that what the red states export to China is things like soybeans and corn and pork and those kinds of things. Chinese are going to slap tariffs, significant tariffs on these products. It's going to hurt the farm economy. It's going to hurt the red states. So I think it's a bad move.
But it will also bring the food inflation in China, though.
No, but Chinese can have alternatives. They can buy from Brazil. They can buy from. There are so many other sources from where they can buy these things. U.S. is not the only exporter of these items. The other thing that the Chinese are going to hit is China is the biggest customer for Boeing right now. They buy a lot of aircraft. Their aviation market is booming. Their air travel, lots of people are traveling, and their traffic is going up dramatically. They buy a lot of aircraft from Boeing. They may just decide, hey, we're not going to buy from Boeing anymore or buy a lot fewer. That's going to cause job losses at Boeing, for example.
Right.
That's going to hurt the U.S. economy. So I think there's so many things that we need to worry about as a result of these actions that Mr. Trump has taken.
So is Mr. Trump not evaluating all the stuff that you just mentioned?
I don't know. I mean, the guy who was his economic advisor left. Gary Cohn, he was dead against these tariffs. He said, hey, don't start a trade war I mean, this is going to be terrible for
I'm
the
trying
United
to
States.
understand.
Now he's brought in this other guy, Larry Kudlow. Kudlow, I know, is also a free trader. Kudlow is probably advising him, hey, go easy, don't do this.
No, what I'm trying to say, what is his rationale on doing this?
I think his rationale is that somehow he thinks that he can get a better deal out of China. That by pushing China, the Chinese are going to ease up. They're not going to export as much. They're going to import more from the United States. But in fact, it may be counterproductive. It may have the opposite effect.
Right.
Yeah, actually, if you see it, before this all things started, this putting that high tariffs on the $60 billion imports from China, there was a say, a lot of analysts, economic analysts here, they say that usually all other countries have a higher tariffs on US products than US impose higher product on other countries' products. So of course there was a little bit imbalance. So I can understand that balance should be brought. But the thing is that the way of $60 billion of import, they put the heavy tariffs, and they say that the main reason, President Trump says, yesterday I was listening him, that because of the Chinese companies are stealing the intellectual properties from the US companies. So that is the reason we are putting these type of tariffs on that. And basically it's a trade war, of course. I mean, and I do agree with you that both countries' people will be affected, but we will be affected more than Chinese will be affected. Chinese were buying a pork. They were importing these pipes, steel pipes, without any thread on that or something like that.
Okay.
Some kind of stuff which they can get it from other places.
So you think the commodities that they were importing could be bought elsewhere?
Even we can buy from elsewhere also. That is not that. But of course, with the...
No, we can't buy from elsewhere because we have a heavy dependency, especially in the high-tech sector.
You are right.
It takes
not only high-tech.
It takes a long while.
That's true.
To bring up that infrastructure elsewhere.
That's true, because that is the main problem, that we will do it eventually. But going back to your big question, that does Mr. Trump think about it? I doubt. He makes his decisions, and I don't know how much his advisor's input is there. However, he did have one person, Mr. Robert Lightser, who is for last 15 days he was going over and trying to find things out, but what are his findings, we will be seeing.
So he's been taking impulsive approach all along.
I would say pseudo impulsive, you can say, because he's involving people. It is not that totally, like a one day wake up and tweet it. It is not like that way. But it is going to hurt mostly the people in both countries. And if this trade war will grow further, it is not good.
So let me shift the gear. Let me take it over to Pakistan, Afghanistan. So in Pakistan, Afghanistan, the President Ghani has given the peace offer to Taliban. Now, Pakistan is trying to mediate what is being said in the news between Taliban and the Afghan government. The issue is Pakistan bring Taliban up to the table to negotiate? Does Pakistan still got any leverage over Taliban? What is really going on? Him giving the peace offer and trying to reach out back again to Pakistan? What is really going on?
Well, there are certain things we all have to understand. I had a very good chat with Dr. Moeed Yusuf, as you saw that on this topic also we mentioned. So first thing is that of course it is not, we should not be thrilled too much. These things come and go. Okay, so that is the conclusion of the whole thing. But if you see carefully here, what is happening? First, President Ghani, in one sense, in his statement, he almost blamed Pakistan for the trouble by saying that, okay, we are offering you a peace deal and make a deal with us because you are the bad guys, so we are even telling you to do. He didn't use the word bad guys, but that is one thing. Second thing is that, going back to your question, that if Pakistan can have a leverage on Taliban, answer is no. Now Afghan government is going to do it by themselves, like they do it with this other
But
person.
many of the it's been said that many of the Afghan Taliban leaders are under the custody of ISI. This is what they've been accusing.
But
or
see,
accusing
okay,
Pakistan of.
No, okay, they are not under custody of that. They say under the protection of that.
Okay.
But the thing is that last time when the peace deal was made and this Pakistan realized it that they don't have too much leverage. Now look at it. There was a bomb blast just a day before yesterday in Afghanistan. Turns out it was done by the Daesh. It was the day of the Nowruz, this bomb blast. What happened first thing? Taliban condemned it. So they have internal links with Taliban. How much Pakistan is playing a role? I doubt Pakistan is playing too much role there, but maybe a little bit, maybe not too much, maybe to that extent that if there are some leaders sitting there as allegedly being told, maybe they are not telling, they are telling them not to do anything, but I really doubt that Pakistan has very heavy leverage on those people. They are very autonomous. They don't care.
Pakistan has had issues with that.
Pakistan has issues.
Afghan Taliban have accused Pakistan of playing double game, and we know the whole story.
And when I asked this question to Dr. Moeed Yusuf, he said that he's not too much hopeful, but
let's see what happens. Riaz, let me take it over to you.
I think on the question of Pakistan having any influence on the Taliban, there's an interesting discussion in Steve Cole's recent book, the Directorate S, in which he says that the Americans basically look at three different types of relationships between Pakistan and the Taliban. There are some who believe that Pakistan actually controls them. And then there are others who believe that Pakistan has influence on them. And there's a third category where they say that the Pakistanis have contacts with them, but they can neither influence them nor control them. This is an ongoing debate within the American intelligence and the policy-making community. Now, as to whether... Now, I personally believe that Pakistan has very, very little influence, if any, with these guys, because they have developed other sources of support now. It's not just Pakistan. They also get support from Iran. They get support from Russia. Even the Americans themselves are saying that now. They're acknowledging the fact that some of these Talibans are being supported by the Russians. They're getting arms. Says that today. So the second issue that I see is, I see no reason why Taliban would want to talk with Ghani. Does Ghani really control anything in Afghanistan? Ghani has very little influence. They see Ghani as essentially a puppet. So they say, why should we talk with the puppet? We need to talk with the puppet master, whoever is pulling his strings. And the puppet master is the United States. But even the United States, they don't have a lot of incentive. I mean, they believe that they're winning. And if they're winning, usually the negotiations and talks occur when there is a stalemate. When both sides believe that they're at a point where neither one of them can win. Right now, I think the Taliban believes that they're winning. So they have no incentive to talk with either Ghani or the Americans. The other issue that people don't often talk about is that the Tajik and the Uzbek groups, the Northern Alliance, they're dead against any negotiations with Taliban. And in the past, when Pakistan has tried to arrange these discussions, these talks, they have actually sabotaged these. They have actively sabotaged these negotiations.
So now one of the benefits for the Afghan Taliban could be that they will not have to fight anymore, and they could be part of the government in Kabul.
They don't want to be a part of the government. They want to be the government, not be a part of any government. They want full control.
Yeah, but the thing is that they are not quite winning. I mean, they did not take any major cities. They are all in the villages and districts wise. Of course, they have a large area of influence. but they are not really winning. And war is too long now. I mean, of course, now they are kind of there is a war fatigue.
They have paid big casualties.
Exactly, and
they have suffered a lot.
And there is a war fatigue, and it's almost 20 years of war. I mean, they are constantly in war. They want, if I can believe to that extent that maybe they want to have some sort of break in the war, and that's why they want to make peace. But it seems the way things going on, they do want to make peace, but the main problem is not that. Problem is that they don't control all the groups. It is not the united force there. There are small pieces. And one piece is taking over this portion, other is sitting in Kunar, and other sitting there. So, of course, I mean, it is not that they are the big victorious, a big, combined force who are about to win.
They've been suffering a lot.
Of course, I mean, they may have to step back for some time, and I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, the life has been miserable overall in Afghanistan.
That's correct.
Riaz, Misbah, thank you so much for joining. Audience, please send us your feedback, send us your input, send us your question. You could see our Twitter, our email on the screen. Until next week, goodbye.
You